Time for the business news next on the program, and we can say good morning to Brian Quinn. Good to see you.
Hey, Donna.
You're starting with some major backlash from French unions in response to proposed reforms at the SNCF.
Right, the French National Rail Company there. The French government has promised to transform it, saying big changes are urgent for the money-losing public rail company as new EU rules will introduce foreign competition starting in 2020. Even France's moderate labor unions are staunchly opposed to the government's proposals, though, calling for a month of strikes in response. Emerald Maxwell takes a look at what's at stake in this report.
For the French Prime Minister, the end justifies the means. The SNCF is struggling under debts of more than 46 billion euros and needs reform urgently.
La situation est alarmante.
The situation is alarming and indefensible. Whether they take the train or not, the French people are paying more and more for a service that works less and less well.
On the programme is an end to the special rail workers' status. At the moment, employees of France's huge state rail operator have a job for life, are automatically promoted every 3 years, and can retire in their 50s. Under the reforms, current staff will keep these rights, but new recruits won't. Unions are calling it an attack on workers and the spirit of public service.
A rail worker didn't used to have to worry about job security. Now that's no longer the case. He's under pressure, and he can be told, if you don't do what I say, I'll fire you.
The government is also considering turning the state operator into an autonomous company backed by public funds, though it insists it would never be privatised. Unions have vowed to fight the plans, which the Prime Minister said could be pushed through by government decree. They've warned of a month of strikes and have already called one for the 22nd of March.
Next, Brian, to some positive news from the International Monetary Fund for the world economy, and particularly Southeast Asia.
Yeah, IMF Director Christine Lagarde is in Jakarta to prepare for the IMF's annual meetings in Bali this fall. While speaking to a conference on Tuesday, Lagarde painted a fairly sunny picture of the global economy, noting a broad upswing for 3/4 of the globe, with 3.9% growth predicted for both 2018 and 2019, over 5% growth forecast for Southeast Asia. The director had high praise for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, pointing out dramatically increased education rates and reduced poverty in recent decades. Lagarde, however, warning that the return of higher interest rates in the U.S. and Europe will require vigilance to maintain stability in the region. Here she is.
The recent volatility in financial markets has been a reminder that a fundamental economic transition is underway. Policymakers around the world, and probably taking turn, not all starting in a synchronized way, are preparing for the gradual normalization of monetary policy in major advanced economies, and we know that this will have spillover effects across the world.
Christine Lagarde speaking in Bali next. Next, for a check of the markets, how are things shaping up this Tuesday?
Well, European index is opening higher. Investors looking ahead to congressional testimony from new U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell later in the day. London's FTSE 100 up around 0.5%. The CAC 40 here in Paris and the Frankfurt DAX both up around 0.3%. Asian indexes mixed on Tuesday. The Nikkei in Tokyo gaining just over 1% as Honda shares bounced there. The Kospi in Korea finishing just under the flat line despite gains in financial shares. Chinese markets solidly in the red as well. Hong Kong's Hang Seng and the Shanghai Composite off on either side of 1%. Well, let's take a look at some more of today's top business headlines. PSA Peugeot Citroën has chosen Malaysia for its first factory in Southeast Asia. The French automaker has purchased a 56% stake in a factory owned by the local NASA group with the goal of producing 18,000 vehicles in 2018. The move wraps up a year-long search by PSA to deploy outside of Europe to diversify its efforts. And the push by Singapore-based chipmaker Broadcom to take over U.S. rival Qualcomm is drawing scrutiny from U.S. national security regulators. The Interagency Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States has the power to stop what is now effectively a hostile takeover attempt. Broadcom had planned to move its headquarters to the U.S. ahead of the planned acquisition, but that may not be enough to satisfy regulators. And the U.S. will soon overtake Russia as the world's largest oil producer. The International Energy Agency says America will be #1 by 2019 at the latest as the country's shale gas boom continues. U.S. crude output is expected to top 11 million barrels per day by late 2018. It overtook Saudi Arabia's output late last year.
And finally, from you, Brian, the Cuban economy may be struggling, but there's one sector that's doing particularly well, red hot, in fact.
Indeed, smoking, you might say. Cuban cigar sales breaking records. A surge of demand from China has helped stogie roller Habanos SA's global revenue rise 12% last year. Chinese sales up 33% in 2017, allowing Habanos to bring in $500 million for the first time ever. That new record, despite the fact that an ongoing embargo prevents Cuba from exporting to the world's largest cigar market, the U.S. China clearly developing a taste for fine hand-rolled cigars, but they're still number 3 on the export list for Cubans, behind Spain and us here in France.
Really?
Indeed. Stogie lovers in
Not a
France.
fan. Yeah? Not a fan.
I don't get it either, but...
Well, each to his own. Thank you very much. Brian Quinn there with the day's business news.